Welcome back to Mr. Tilley's Mathemagics. In this lesson, we are going to be looking at our 3 laws for cancelling out. Now, we're going to go through this stuff step by step, so feel free to pause the video if you need to, write the laws down. I'd strongly recommend that you actually write all 3 of these laws down so that you can refer back to them later. Now, one thing to remember about these laws is that there's not really any particular sequence to them. You can do them in any order you want. You just have to make sure that the actions that you are taking do not violate any of these laws. So let's jump right in and see our first law for cancelling out. Well, number 1, it actually involves our order of operations. So you may have heard the order of operations expressed a couple of different ways. In this case, we're going to say BIDMAS. So obviously brackets, indices or powers, exponents, those are 3 terms for that. Division, multiplication, we can swap those around. Addition, subtraction, we can also swap those around. But when we are cancelling out, the important thing to remember about our order of operations is that it ends up happening in reverse. So rather than being BIDMAS, it's now going to be Sam Dib. This means that we're going to do the subtraction and addition first, interchangeable. Multiplication, division, again, they're interchangeable. Then you cancel out any powers or indices. And after that, you get rid of your brackets. So this first law also ends up guiding us into our second law. And this law states that we need to use the opposite operation. When it comes to our second law, we need to consider which operations have that relationship and what relationship they have. So, subtraction and addition, these ones are opposite. Multiplication and division, these 2 as well. These are really easy opposites that we should already know. When it comes to the indices or the exponents, these are a little bit trickier and they require your understanding of the root function. And if you look at your calculator, it will look something like this. Now, if we have an exponent of 2, it's really easy because it's just that symbol that gives us the squared root. If we have any other power or indice though, then we need to find the root of that value. So if our exponent is 4, we need to find the 4th root of that number, and that's what's going to cancel out our exponent. If you look on your calculator though, what you will find is that it will look something like that. You'll have a little x before the square root function, and that's going to be how you cancel out exponents. Now, when it comes to our brackets, that's these things, we get rid of those, or we cancel those out by using the distributive law. We will go into that in a different video. For now, let's just stick with our 3 laws of cancelling out. Now, our third law tells us that we need to do the same operation to both sides. And this is important because when we are talking about math, everything comes in balance. Subtraction has addition, multiplication has division, and everything's about that seesaw effect, that creating a balance between both sides of the equation. So if we subtract from one side, we have to subtract from the other as well. So let's have a go with a couple and see how we go working them out. As I said earlier, if you need to pause the video to work your way through it, if you want to go ahead of me and try to work it out, go for gold. Absolutely give it a crack. I'd strongly recommend that. Now, the first one we're going to do, it's a really easy one. You would have seen something very similar to this in primary school, where your teacher would just put an empty space in your equation and say something like, I don't know, something plus 3 equals 9. What your teacher's doing there is priming your mind to think, okay, well, what goes in that space? Well, we're going to now look a little bit deeper into this, and we're going to apply our 3 laws of cancelling out. Well, our first one right there, it's BIDMAS backwards. So we don't have any other operations in there. We've only got one, so we don't have to worry about that. But step 2, our second law, tells us we need to use the opposite operation. To be able to find that out, we need to know what operation we have. And when we identify our operation here as addition, well, the opposite to addition is going to be subtract. And so to cancel the plus 3 out, we're going to take 3. We're going to subtract 3. Well, if we do this, then we've got something plus 3, take 3 is cancelled out equals 9. We now have too many points on the right side of the equal sign. So this is where our third law comes into it, and we need to do the same to both sides. So if we subtracted by 3 on one side, we have to subtract by 3 on this side. And what we find now is we have an empty space. We have something equals 9 take 3, which we now know something, what goes in that box is 6. Now, if we put that into our original equation and we say 6 plus 3 equals 9, well, does it? Yeah, it does. So that's our answer. We've used our 3 laws of cancelling out, and we have even tested our result to make sure that we are correct. Now, let's try something that's a little bit more complicated. So let's try this one. 3x plus 2 equals 20. Now remember that empty space from our previous example, that is just a variable. In this case, we're using x instead of an empty box. This is a number that's going to change. It's the one we want to find. So now we're going to have a look at our first law that we've written. We have 2 operations here because we know that this section here in algebra, if there's no operation there, we need to multiply. So in this problem, we have multiplication and addition. But our first law, that tells us that we need to consider the addition first. So that's what we're going to do. Law 2 tells us that we need to do the opposite operation. So the opposite to add is subtract, and we're going to subtract 2 because we want to cancel out that 2. Now our third law again says we need to do the same to both sides. So if we're subtracting 2 over here, we need to subtract 2 over here as well. So let's draw that in so we can keep track. Well, our next line is going to read 3x equals 20 take 2. That one is 18. Now, how do we cancel out multiplication? Well, again, law number 2, we use the opposite operation. And what have we got right here? Multiplication and division. Those ones are opposites. So to cancel out 3 times x, we are going to divide by 3. Remember, fractions are just another way of writing division. So 18 divided by 3 as well, which will give us x equals 6. Now, just like in the last one, we can take this 6 and we can put it up here. 3 times 6, well, that's 18, plus 2, that's 20. These are our 3 laws for cancelling out. As always, if you've got any questions, write them down, bring them into class. I'll bet your teacher up the front there has a whole bunch of activities for you to practice and get really good on this. So I will see you in the next lesson.